Hey, there's Ruslan.
Good morning, Mark. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Good. How are things in Florida?
Oh man, I don't want to rub it in, but it's pretty amazing. I'm not gonna lie. Yeah, how are
Excellent.
you?
We're doing okay. We're doing
Well, that's
okay.
good.
I connected with McKelly this week, and we're having a little bit longer discussion next week. So yeah, he's
Awesome.
a pretty cool guy.
He is. Yeah, he's a really cool guy. He was in a band for a long time. He's like a rock star type of guy. But yeah, his that's what his firm really specializes in. So I felt like that'd be the best fit for y'all.
We'll see how things progress, but yeah, it's he's definitely a high energy kind of guy.
That
That's
is for sure. That is definitely for sure.
birds of a
Um,
feather, huh?
Yeah, I guess one could say that. One could say that. Yeah. Well, how cool though that you guys have so much in your pipeline. Like that's awesome. That's really incredible, Ross.
It's there now. We just gotta tease it out.
I know how that goes. I know how that goes. Well, cool. Well, we'll give some extra time here um, to some other individuals. I know some people said that they were going to be coming in late. So we'll give it a little bit. We'll give it another minute or two before people come, and then we'll jump on in.
No worries. I'll mute out.
All right, welcome y'all. We're going to give it just another couple of minutes or two in which we're letting some people come on in. Really excited. We've got a great presentation. I always want to say show when that happens, but it's less of a show. But we're going to have some great stuff. We're going to cover some great content, give you an opportunity to ask some questions. We'll share the deck with everyone as well at the end. We'll also send out a recording too. So if you need to jump or anything like that, don't worry about it. So we'll give it another minute or two. I see a couple people are coming online as well. It's a Friday. Great weather down here in sunny Naples, Florida. Hope it's the same with wherever you're at. I know we've got Ross on here up in Wisconsin. Sarah is originally from this area as well. Now in Texas. Sarah, I wish I could show you the great weather and the beach views we've been having as of recently.
I miss it.
It misses you, Sarah. It misses you down here. Well, cool. All right. Well, we'll give it another minute or two. A couple people coming on, and then we'll get started. All right, well, we've given some people some time, so let's get ready to dive in here. I know some more will be joining as the presentation goes on. So just give me a quick thumbs up if you can it should be your options down in Zoom. If you can hear me and see me okay. Sounds like everybody could before, judging by that before. Great. All right, so we got that all. All right, so let's dive in here. So fired up. I'm really excited to be here today. Thank you for joining me on this Friday. We're going to talk about the 4 must-have elements of a 7-figure sales playbook. So just a couple of quick notes and some housekeeping. We're going to be using the polling function a little bit. I'll keep you all on mute. If you have something to say or if you have a question or anything like that, just let me know. But we're going to go ahead. We'll get started. At the end of this presentation, there's going to be some bonuses and some freebies valued at over $750. So I want you to stick around to the end, and I'll show you how you can take advantage of that as well. So here is what we are going to cover here. But before we get started, I'm going to have you take a quick poll. So I just launched the poll here. And basically, I want to know where you're currently at, right? One of 3 options. I want to know where you're at with your sales playbook journey and creating your sales playbook. Do you already have a sales playbook? Do you not have a sales playbook, but you're looking to create one? Or you thought that this was going to be about sports and maybe the Packers and what should we do in the off season. I like how I like to talk like most Packers fans, and I say we, right, as if we're all in this together and we're helping make these decisions together. So seeing some of the feedback come in. So a lot of people already have a sales playbook. That's awesome. I'm going to give you some strategies and some tips on how to optimize that. Maybe get more of your team using that, as that seems to be an issue with some individuals, right, where the sales team isn't necessarily using the playbook. Others who don't have a sales playbook, but if you're looking to create one, this is going to be a great jumping off point. I know developing a sales playbook can really seem daunting, can really seem like, oh my gosh, where do we even start? Where do we even begin? So what we're going to talk about today with the 4 elements of a must-have 7-figure sales playbook are going to be a great jumping off point. They're going to be a great starting point. Just a couple of notes here. I'm going to be sending out the slides here in a PDF format at the end of the presentation. So you'll have all of these as well. I'm going to go through a lot of different elements of what should be in the sales playbook. I'm going to refer to them as plays. So if you're ever like, what is a play? Just know that it's a actual piece that should be in your sales playbook. You could think of it as a little story. You could think of it as a snapshot, but we'll get into a little bit more of that later. So thank you so much for taking the poll. I appreciate it. So let's dive in here. So some of you who already have a sales playbook, maybe you already have answered this question for you, but for those that don't, you may be asking, why do I even need a sales playbook, right? Well, I think now more than ever, it's more important than ever before to actually have a sales playbook. And why is that? Well, if you guys weren't aware, last year around March, there's this little thing called the pandemic where, and I don't know if you heard of that, where things really changed business and it really changed sales teams up, right? And a lot of companies, a lot of sales teams certainly weren't ready for it. And work from home and sell from home has been a struggle for a lot of the clients I've talked to, for a lot of the salespeople I've personally interacted with. And I've heard stories of salespeople that are really struggling to focus, right? They're getting lost in the mix. And there's not that consistency when it comes to onboarding and training. If you've had to train anybody remotely over this past year, there's not that same sort of connection that one gets when it's side by side. So this is leading to a lot of negative habits, I would say, when it comes to sales teams and what they're experiencing for now. So reps are more distracted than ever before. Training isn't easy. It's more difficult than ever before. And reps are spending a lot more time searching for content, searching for some other things that we'll get into a little bit, than they are being productive and closing deals. So now more than ever, someone needs a sales playbook, right? Teams need a sales playbook, that one source of truth where reps can go to, not only for training, but ongoing education as well, which is going to be really important too. Now, the numbers that we're looking at here when it comes to the onboarding, the training, and the ongoing education of an employee and of a salesperson, well, I'll be really honest with you, they're not great, right? The numbers, they're pretty crappy, to be honest with you. They paint a pretty tough scenario. So this first stat I want to get into, and according to a recent study, is that new hires, about 17% of them, right? New hires are only retaining about 17% of the content and the information that's being presented during training and onboarding. So 17%, so less than 20% of all content that someone is actually being taught or is actually being trained on is actually being retained. And I can certainly see this. I remember my first couple of sales jobs, that was the same way, right? We talk about training from a fire hose, right? Where we're sending a ton of information to these people, yet they're only retaining about 17%. So that's the first big hurdle, because what leads to that is this number, right? So if a salesperson or if your employee is only retaining about 17%, what are they naturally going to do? Well, they're going to ask questions, right? They ask for that information again. And so on average, an employee or a salesperson needs to hear about 4 times the info to really stick. Now, for salespeople, I think their ears perk up anytime a commission conversation comes about, right? I know I always remember those. But when it comes to maybe logging a deal in a CRM or doing an action in your CRM, well, it seems like we tend to forget those, especially as salespeople, and maybe that takes us closer to 10 times. So that's maybe where that average comes from. But what's worse, and maybe this scenario has happened to you if you've had to manage or train or bring on a new salesperson or employee, where that employee maybe asks another question, right? And then they ask it again, and then they ask that same question again, right? And us as managers, we start getting into a position questioning, well, is that person even paying attention? Are they a right fit for this role? Are they just not getting it here? Yet they need to ask it at least 4 times, right? Maybe they need to hear it at least 4 times. So we've seen time after time where there could be a really good fit in your organization, but if they've asked a couple of questions that are the same questions, they start to give this negative persona. So what happens next is maybe they start making assumptions. They don't want to ask questions, or they start asking their colleagues who may not have the answer or the right answer as well. So it just starts snowballing. Now, 90%, and this is a shocking stat, 90% of sales training has no impact after 3 months. So organizations on average are spending over $1,000 to $2,000 every single year on training salespeople. Yet 90% of that sales training has no lasting impact over 3 months. Because what we found time after time, there's no ongoing training. There's no ongoing and continuous sort of education that's going to keep them engaged and keep them training long term. So all that training money that you just fought so hard to either allocate or allocated from other things goes out the window, right? And is useless. And the final depressing stat of this presentation is 2 hours, right? So 2 hours. And what that means is on average, salespeople are spending almost 2 hours every day, either searching for information, or they're trying to track down content or get an answer from a coworker or manager on something related to sales in order to push their business forward. Now, this may be a little high, and I think it is, but what's even scarier is how many times our employees just giving up on searching and they're making up the answer, right? Or what if they're going to a coworker that made up their own answer a few years ago or a few months ago, but just so happens to be the one that's in place right now, right? That just continues to compound the issues, right? So even if, let's say that this is only 50% accurate and the average rep is only spending about an hour per day trying to find content, trying to find information, trying to advance their sale, messaging their boss on Slack, right? Firing off a Teams message, wondering how you log something in a CRM or do some certain action. Let's just say that's an hour a day. Well, that's going to add up, right? That's 5 hours a week, 250 hours per year. And if you marry that then with how much time is spent and how much time is wasted from managers that have to go over the same content, have to do some retraining and continually answer the same question, well, that's really going to add up time after time. So how much is that costing your business? Well, it could be costing your business a ton, and that's missing out on opportunities, or your team's missing out on opportunities. Now, many organizations are trying to equip salespeople with too little information too late. Much of it, honestly, it's overwhelming and poorly presented, or it's out of context. We'll go over certain things in the first couple of weeks of your sales training, yet you won't get to that until 7, 8, 9 months down the line when you're actually about to close a big deal, right? But we cover that stuff in the first week or two. We spend all this time and effort when you're not actually going to see that the results of that for a couple months down the road. Now, salespeople, what they really need is they need some business tools, they need selling tools, they need process tools, and conversation tools to really succeed. And so today, that's what we're really going to talk about, and how you, as a sales manager or a sales leader, or as an entrepreneur, CEO, or a founder, can really leverage those tools so that you can start getting your sales team into a sales playbook so they can sell more consistently and they can have that single source of truth to avoid some of those ugly stats. And what we're going to cover today is are the four elements that have to be in a 7-figure sales playbook. And here's what they are. The 4 elements really boil down to these following things. So the first is your story, and that's really documenting the uniqueness of your company. It's documenting your company's vision, their story, and we'll get a little bit more into that in just a bit. It's one of my favorite ones. The next is rules of the road. It's how you want your sales team to operate. Number 3 is SOPs or NOPE. I like to say nope on a rope to my kids a lot, so that's why I included in that there. That's really the how-tos and the step-by-steps. And last but not least is really the selling tools. So this is what your sales team is asking for, especially new hires. Don't let your reps reinvent the wheel. What you want to do is give them the scripts, the emails, the product knowledge, the objection handling, and even the discovery questions that works and allow them to grow from there. What we're going to cover a lot in today's presentation is templates as well. I'm going to show you a lot of the templates that we've developed from our work working with a lot of fast growing organizations, because I always think it's far easier to work off of a template than it is to stare at a blank screen. So I really hope that helps you as well. And I'll give you a full list of all the templates as well. So before we jump into the actual content itself, though, there's a lot of people I know on this webinar today, and I really appreciate you coming. There's several of you that I do not know, and welcome. Really happy to have you here. So for those of you that haven't met me, my name is Mark Evans. I'm the CEO and founder of Sales Kit. I've spent years as a sales consultant helping grow teams, some that started off as 5-member teams, and we scaled to 75 in the span of just a few short months. And I've either been a part of or consulted with several organizations that are Inc. 5000 companies or Future 50 award winners. I'm also the author of that book up in the upper right-hand corner called Raise Your Standards, the definitive guide to building 7-figure sales, which was a #1 Amazon bestseller for several weeks, which means more than just my mom bought a copy, which was really nice and sweet. I've been written up in Inc. magazine, and I first really got obsessed with building sales playbooks to make it easier to onboard, train, and continue to train sales reps. Actually, out of my very first job out of college, I was freshly engaged. I remember this really well, actually. I was freshly engaged. My wife and I have been married now for 11 years, and I was dressed like it was the first day of school. We actually just found the picture recently. It's pretty funny. I had my tie, had a briefcase. I don't even know what I had in the briefcase. It couldn't have been anything important. And I was so fired up. I was ready to take the world by storm, all filled with vinegar, ready to go. And I check into my first day at my new job, ready to just make $1 billion right that month. And so I got a little tour of the operation. I was welcomed warmly, shown where the coffee machine is, shown where the bathrooms were, got introduced to a few people. And then my boss sat me down, said, "Mark, we're really excited to have you here. Here's your desk. There's a phone. You've got a computer. Here's some old business cards. And what I need you to do is start selling our product." This was in the middle of the recession. This business, right, had just laid off a bunch of people, but brought me in thinking that they were going to solve all their problems by having a rookie salesperson come in and try to rescue the business. So luckily for me, I didn't last very long in that job. It was obviously not a great fit, but that's really where I got obsessed with how could this happen, right? How could a company think that, hey, someone's just going to come in and with no product knowledge, with really no training, they're going to come in and start being successful. Luckily enough, I got some great training. I had some great mentors. I had some great experience. And as I got into sales management, I started to see that there was gaps with a lot of the companies that I either worked with or worked for or consulted for. And so I started seeing that a lot of companies could really benefit from a sales playbook, right? A one source of truth for all of your information when it comes to sales. I know I certainly would have benefited from onboarding and training, from having that go-to resource where anything related to sales content, to sales knowledge was going to be placed. And so I started to really look at the market and started looking for tools that could help me along that path. And I started to see that a lot of companies, they either placed all their sales information, if they were doing this, right? If they were at least documenting their sales knowledge, they put it in Google Docs, which gets really messy and unorganized pretty quickly once you get over 2 or 3 or even 4 reps. And then I saw on the other side of the spectrum that there was a lot of enterprise learning and development platforms, right? Which oftentimes takes a learning and development department to maintain. And my clients needed something in the middle. So that's exactly what we created. And that's what we created with Sales Kits. With Sales Kit, that's the name of our software. And so what I'm going to talk to you today is a lot about the templates, a lot about what we've seen working with dozens of organizations in which we've made sales playbooks for. But before we really dive into there, I want us to just back out for a brief moment and take kind of a 30,000-foot overview so that we can look at the not just the four elements of what takes a sales playbook from good to great, but really look at the fundamentals. And so the fundamentals of a sales playbook is what I call the 6 pillars of a sales playbook, really boil down to these 6 things. Now, some organizations have more, some can even do away with a little bit less, but not much. But I've really found throughout organizations, throughout different markets, different sales team size, and in all sorts of different industries, that these were really the 6 pillars that a sales playbook needs to have. Now, if you're really interested in this, we're going to be hosting another webinar session next week, Friday, in which we're going to cover exactly this. So if you're interested, I'll make sure you get the info to that. But this is really the core 6 pillars of a sales playbook. And it starts with messaging, right? What is your customer differentiation? What's your unique selling proposition? The next is prospect info. What do you know about your prospect from a demographic, psychographic, even market information? The third is outreach. How do you plan on actually going out and getting in touch with and getting in front of these different clients or prospects? Fourth is discovery, kind of that magic dance of what happens once you have someone that's maybe a marketing qualified lead, in which you can bring them in and start asking different questions and how you can bring them to hopefully what is a demonstration and a closing of that product. The fifth is follow up, because most businesses don't just close one call. And then last but not least is closing, right? And so what are the different negotiation levers? What are the different strategies one could employ in order to close and to gain that business? So what we're going to talk about today are really just the four elements, but I thought that we'd at least want to introduce this. And so, again, hosting another webinar on this next week, Friday. I'll make sure that you get more of that info if you are interested. Now, you can start using these 6 pillars as just a little bit of a template to start seeing where are the holes in your sales process, as well as these 4 elements too. And so if you want more of the templates in place that are going to help you get and help you build each part of this process, I'll definitely show you those, and we'll send this out after this. So let's dive in here. So the 4 must-have elements of a 7-figure sales playbook are as follows. And so we talked about your story. And so the your story is a critical element of your onboarding process. If you're a CEO or if you're a sales leader and you want to impart, you want to, change the DNA of your sales reps on how they know your story and how they are integrated into your company, this part is really key, because I've seen a lot of companies, we just don't spend a lot of time really imparting the story of the business. And chances are the business has an amazing story. And so that's where we get into first, is really with origin story. This is always kind of a fun one. And one of the activities I like to do with the companies that I consult with and work for is going in one of the first days, and you can do this as well, either try it today or try it early next week, and ask your salespeople what the origin story of your organization is. Now, I've been to a lot of companies, I've seen a lot of things, and time after time, it's really fascinating to see how sales reps, right? You can have 5 sales reps and there's 5 different stories of how the company got started. And chances are, if you have built a business, if you've started a business and it's been successful, if you're growing and scaling a sales team, you've got an amazing origin story, but it's not being shared. And it can be a really powerful element when it comes to prospecting, when it comes to maybe lower down in the sales funnel as well, as you're sharing that with decision makers, can be a really powerful thing. However, we often don't have a consistent origin story, right? Maybe it's that hero's journey of how we started with nothing. We were in the garage and then we faced this major challenge, but here's how we overcame it and here's where we're at now. Customers, people in general, they want to hear that story. We are connected at a deep fundamental level from centuries and centuries of stories being passed down. We're connected to stories, and that's a really powerful one. So if you want to have a more cohesive origin story, you can start by using this framework. Now, this is a screenshot of the templates that we provide inside of SalesKit, but really there's kind of 4 main elements when it comes to creating your own origin story, and they are as follows. The first is that it has to be true, right? So you have to be true, right? It can't be a made up story. The second is you want to reduce the confusion, right? So focus on reducing the confusion. Third is choose a very vivid moment. Where was that time where it seemed like all hope was lost and then we made this pivot and here we're at now? And then last but not least, use specific details. So that's a quick framework that you can use to take your origin story from wherever it's at now and maybe enhance and highlight it as well. So that's origin story, a really important one, especially for founder-led organizations. Next, let's talk about your elevator pitch, right? How often are salespeople in a situation in which they need to have a quick elevator pitch? Or how about customer service or customer success, right? It's not just salespeople that need to quickly tell and demonstrate the story of the company, state the problem that most organizations are having, and give that quick pitch. Now, what we've come up with is a 4-part framework for helping develop your elevator pitch. Because let's be honest, most elevator pitches, they don't mean much. They don't have anything to them. They don't help resonate with the audience. So we've developed this 4-part elevator pitch in which you're basically stating the problem, right? We work with entrepreneurs or we work with companies who are facing X, Y, or Z, or they're facing this sort of problem. Then you can move on to aggravate it, right? They don't know how much money they're losing or time they're wasting. And then you can start teasing the solution, right? That's when you can start saying, and here's how we save companies, or due to this technology, we do this. And then you can add a little value as well. So following this nice elevator pitch, because if you have 50 employees, chances are you're going to have 50 elevator pitches. And this is some real low-hanging fruit that you can take and actually advance on to help obviously get that consistent and cohesive sales message. So that's a really important one. So what else comes in the your story, right? The your story is a really critical element of the must-haves when it comes to a 7-figure sales playbook. And the other parts of that is really identifying your sales culture. So what are the parts of your sales culture that are really important? What are you looking for? Again, this is a way for you to really express, especially as a leader, what you're looking for, how you want your sales team to operate, what are the values you want them to really embody. So that's why we list our sales culture in the playbook. That's why we put our core values down in a playbook. And we just don't post it once, right? But it's in a playbook so that they're constantly reminded of it. Because as you develop those core values, as you develop that sales culture, decisions can be made out of that, right? Our core values determine that we don't take the shortcuts, right? Or whatever kind of your core values are going to take you towards, this can be a really powerful way to express that amongst your new salespeople, even veteran salespeople alike. And a third powerful one too is success stories of reps, right? Most people get into sales because they want to be successful. Chances are they joined your organization because they want to be successful. So why not share your success stories of reps, right? Why not share how someone started as a lowly SDR? And for any of the SDRs that are on this call, I love you. You're great. That's where I started as well. Talked about how they started on the bottom rung, the entry-level position, and they were able to then become a VP of sales, or they were able to have all the success, or how they were the number one, the killer biller in the office, the number one salesperson. Those are the stories that reps are really going to embody, right? And you want to be able to show them, you want to be able to show your salespeople their hero's journey and how they could have success with this company. So really important with the your story. If you have any questions as well, actually, you know what? I think our chat was broken. So if you do have a question, please raise your hand, and then I'll get to you when we have a good stopping point as well. So let's move on to the next one then. So next is rules of the road, right? So this section is all about how you want your sales team to operate. Just like a sports playbook that is handed down to players, this is the same when it comes to a sales playbook. This is how you want your sales team to operate. It's what you want them to say. It's what your sales team needs to do in every call, pre-call, and how you want them to follow up. Now, these are standards that you don't want to deviate from. If you want to be a part of this team, right, this is what you can tell your sales team. If you want to be a part of this team, this is how we operate. This is how we do discovery calls here. This is how we prepare for a meeting. This is how we follow up post a demo. Now, I talk to a lot of companies that want their reps to, for example, ask for more referrals or ask better questions in their discovery call, but they're like a fireplace, right? That's asking, for flames, right? And they're asking for the heat. And then they say, well, then I'll give you the wood, right? Once you give me the heat, once you give me the flames, well, then I'll add some wood. Now, this element of a sales playbook is all about showing your sales team how you want them to operate. You can't ask for more referrals unless you're ready to give them a tool in which to do so appropriately. And I've seen this at a lot of organizations, and we expect either entry salespeople or veteran salespeople to just inherently know this. Well, most people don't go to a sales school, right? This isn't taught in school often. And so sometimes we just don't know. And of course, we could Google, right? We could come up with our own process. But as a leader, I really want to challenge you to think, all right, hey, if this is the outcome that we want to try to drive, what are the tools that I can give to my sales team in order to make sure that that happens? So the first is upsell and cross-sell. Give them the tools again. So this is a quick template that we've created as well, in which there's really 4 elements, right? Think of it as almost 4 ingredients that one needs to identify in order to create the right scenario to ask for an upsell or a cross-sell, right? And so this is the template to help them identify what type of customer it is, what current product are they on, what problem else could they be having in their business, and maybe how you've helped other companies in their situation overcome those problems and what action that they can take as well. So a quick template that you can use there to help them say, hey, when you see a company that's just like this, that has this current product, that's experiencing this problem, well, you can reference a success story that we've already had, and then you can ask them for this cross-sell opportunity or this upsell, whatever kind of makes most sense for your business, but give them and show them the environment that it takes to be successful in that upsell and cross-sell. So you can give them the tools there. Right. Next, really important here. A lot of companies I've worked with say, hey, our reps just don't prospect enough. We're paying for leads and we're trying to do all that, but they still need to prospect. Yet we don't give them the tools to necessarily build a prospect list, right? Or we don't show them to say, hey, this is what a great prospect list looks like. And they oftentimes are going after prospects that maybe aren't the best fit for the business. So again, another template inside of our tool sales kit in which it takes the actual step-by-steps, the different attributes, the different steps it takes to build out your, what it takes to build out a prospect list. So it's there, so it's navigated. So no reps have an excuse to say, well, I don't know how to do that, right? I didn't know how to build out a prospect list, and that's why I'm not actually prospecting. That's why my numbers are behind. So important there. Next, referral process, right? Just like we talked about before, giving them the tools in which to identify their top customers, look at what are some of the common demographics, and then be able to match those up with your ideal customer profile. So this, again, is a template that we've created in which it can help you map out, right, who's going to be a best fit of a referral for you, and then what's the actual steps that you can take in order to try to get and capture that referral, right? Because you can't ask for more referrals unless you're ready to give them a tool to do so appropriately, right? We can always ask, hey, we want more, but until you actually give them a tool to say, hey, this is how you can do it, that's where you're really going to get some success. So some other elements that are really critical when putting into this area is really tracking down and identifying, all right, what are the discovery call questions we need to ask? What's a question we need to ask in every single meeting? What's important here? What do we really need to get down to the bottom of in all of our discovery calls? What's our customer competitor differentiation? So really critical for especially your new hires to understand the landscape, right? So how do you differentiate from your competitors? What makes your product better, right? Where are the areas you want to compete in? Really tracking that down, because they're not going to just learn that on their own. It could take months, if not years, to really figure that out on their own. You can expedite that process by mapping out what does your competitor differentiation look like. Also, mapping out your unique selling propositions. Just come up with 3. What are the 3 unique ways why people buy your product? Start there and expand from there. And last, negotiation strategies. What are the levers? What are the touch points that you can move in order to get a deal done? So that's a really critical element of that aspect. And so let's move on to number 3. But before I do, I'm going to take a quick little sip of water. Anybody have a question on what we've covered so far in the 2 elements? If so, just raise your hand up in there and I'll unmute you. All right, going once, going twice. Sold. Cool. All right. Well, next we're going to get into SOPs, or NOPE, or as I like to say, nope on a rope. Now, this part and this element of the sales playbook is going to save you just a ton of time. If anyone else is out there and spends a lot of time and energy answering similar questions on how to do this or how to do that, a lot of times answering questions on how to document something in the CRM or what the actual process looks like, well, this is really going to help save you some time, right? So really big proponent of documenting your SOPs. And so the reason why this is a compounding issue, but luckily it's also a compounding solution. So if you have 5 salespeople, and I've seen this at organizations of all different sizes, chances are if you don't have an SOP in place, you have 5 different ways of conducting a process or executing an action. And if anybody's ever had to manage a CRM, you've seen this, right? Where it's like, how is this even in our CRM? Or how is this information? How is this so poorly populated? And this is where a ton of headaches can come from. And it's the reason why, sales reps sometimes can't remember how to log a deal in Salesforce. It's because you showed them probably on their first week or two of being on the job. And then we're asking them to do that, months down the line. So chances are they're going to end up making it up themselves. Not doing it is what we commonly see as well. So this is a great way. It's going to avoid a lot of headaches just by documenting some of your SOPs. So one of the ones that we see often and that companies use SalesKit for is really documenting different parts of their CRM. So very easy to do. All you have to do is do screen recordings. So one of the best things and one of the easiest ways to save you a bunch of time is by following, it should be 5 rules of SOPs. Someone didn't check this before it went out. That'd be my fault. But really, what are the 5 rules of SOPs? And the first is just screen recording. Screen recordings are going to be your friend here. Just hit record. There's so many different platforms from Vidyard to Wistia to Vimeo. Make sure you have one of those tools so you can start capturing the elements and the different procedures and the actions that sales team members take throughout your day. Number 2, I want you to really think through, start with just yourself and then get your sales team involved. What are the top 10 processes that your sales team is performing every single day? Start by creating a spreadsheet, right? Maybe it's just documenting a lead. Maybe it's advancing a deal inside of your CRM. Whatever it is, though, I want you to make sure, though, that you started to create a list of the 10 most popular actions that your sales team needs to perform every single day. Start capturing those, and then we can develop a plan for how we're going to take those down. Third one, and this is really important, right? Progress over perfection. I want you to just hit record. If you're trying to document and show how you should log a deal in Salesforce or in your CRM, it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be a Michael Bay production, right? It doesn't have to be highly edited. If you flub over some words, don't worry about it. It's going to be totally fine. All right. So just focus on making some progress and don't feel like it has to be perfect. Now, next is that multiplication of hours, right? For every hour you spend documenting and documenting your process, I truly believe that you'll save at least 2, 3, 4. We've even seen sometimes with some of our clients up to 5 hours per rep per week. So, right, every time you spend an hour documenting different actions, how to log deals, how to put different things in CRMs, that's one less question that's going to be asked to you. That's one less knock on the door that says, hey, do you have a quick minute? I have a question about this. That's one less email that you have to answer. That's one less retraining that you have to do, right? So this is really a multiplication of hours. So this, as you look to scale your organization, this can be a compounding problem where more and more people start creating and start taking more of your time. But this can also be a multiplication of hours when it comes to a solution, where the more you do this, the more you get into a habit of recording these different processes and procedures, you can then save your time as well. And last but not least, if you have kids or if you have a dog, right, you can't cave. You got to be disciplined. You have to stick to your guns. So if a sales rep comes to you and says, hey, where do I go to do this process, this procedure? You've got to stick to your guns. You can't cave. You got to say, well, have you checked, the sales playbook, right? It's in the sales playbook, and not give them the answer. We want to train our sales team to be able to go to the sales playbook first before anything else. And that's really critical. And they won't do that if you're constantly giving them the answer. That's often one of the most difficult ones as well. You got to be firm and draw a line in the sand. All right, last but not least, this is the final element that needs to be in your seven-figure sales playbook. And that's really, it's honestly, it's one of the favorites here. Sales reps tend to love this. These are the actual selling tools. These are your scripts. These are your emails. This is your product knowledge, maybe your features and benefits, and your objection handling. I want you to give your reps a big leg up by giving them the answers to the test, right? You don't have to hold that back from. Give them the actual answers, right? Make sure that they're not reinventing the wheel with every new hire. I want you to use what actually works. Imagine if you could decrease that time in which a rep has to kind of find out for their own, like, well, what messaging works, what emails work, what script works. Imagine just handing that to them and say, hey, we know that these tools will make you successful. So just go ahead and use them. And so here's a couple templates that we have, right? You can really document what makes a good cold call, what makes a good prospecting call at your organization. It doesn't have to be word for word, kind of like this one is, but it can be just bullet points. What do you want to make sure that you're covering in every single one of your cold calls? Next is voicemail scripts, right? Don't just leave it up to chance that your sales reps either one going to leave a voicemail or two leave an appropriate one, but actually tell them, hey, this is how we leave voicemails around here, right? Take some time to actually document your process, and this is going to cut the learning process down immensely. Now, a lot of people have said, well, Mark, like, do we even really need to have voicemail scripts? Is this really important, right? And I really think that when I hear that and when I get that question asked, I often think of a story that I heard about Mr. John Wooden. And for those of you that don't know, John Wooden was a legendary basketball coach in the 70s. I think he had 4 or 5 undefeated NCAA men's basketball teams. And just a real phenom when it came to coaching. Very, very successful. And on the first day of practice, and John Wooden would recruit the top tier talent, right? So these would be individuals that were praised in their high school, the top talent throughout the United States. And on their very first day of practice, I'm sure everybody was hyped up and raring to go. John Wooden would sit down all of his players, and for the first 45 minutes of practice, would show them how to put on socks appropriately and then how to put on shoes. Well, these are individuals that have been playing basketball for years. They knew how to put their socks on. They knew how to put their shoes on. But John Wooden came back to, if you don't put your socks on appropriately, chances are you can get blisters. And if you don't lace up your shoes appropriately, you could turn an ankle, and then you're no good to the team as well. So that's where I go to. If you want to create a culture of sales excellence, and if you want to create a culture of sales winning, these are some of the things that you need to do. Just don't leave it up to chance. Make sure you're giving your sales team the appropriate tools. And last but not least is the objection handling, right? Chances are we know what sort of objections are going to be happening when it comes to trying to sell your product, your service, your widget, whatever it is. Give your reps some help, because one of the most fear-inducing aspects of sales, and I still feel it to this day, is getting and handling objections, right? This can zap new hires of all confidence. So why not give them a hand and show them exactly what objections they're going to be receiving and exposed to, and then how to handle appropriately, right? Just give them the answers to it. We already know, chances are, what the objections are. Why not just help them and prepare them so that they're ready for it, so that they're spending more time actually making the calls and doing the activity and trying to get better than they are trying to reinvent the wheel. Now, what else could go in here? Well, this could be a really big list depending on your organization in this element, right? You could have your features and benefits. You could have your LinkedIn connection messages. If you have a rep that is getting great traction when it comes to LinkedIn, well, find out what they're doing. Download that content from them. Put it in your sales playbook. Make sure that it's available so that all of your reps are following that, right? If one is doing it and it's getting great results, imagine multiplying that out to the rest of your sales team. Same goes with social prospecting messages. Any inbound phone scripts or call scripts are great, and any new product scripts as well. If you're taking a new product to market, why not develop the game plan for that? Share that with your sales team. Why not? So that they can open up a part in the sales playbook and say, hey, this is what we do when it comes to a new product. These are how we're going to make our calls. These are the emails that we're going to send out. You can really cut down the amount of time it takes to get a new product not only out to market, but successfully either getting traction or getting feedback on it. So this is what we've talked about so far. So these are the 4 elements of the 7-figure sales playbook. We've got 4 of them: the your story, rules of the road, SOPs, and selling tools. And before we move on any further, I just want to see if anybody has any questions at this time. Fire away, raise your hand. That format seems to work pretty well. And let me know if there's anything that we have covered that isn't quite making sense, or if you have any questions on any of the topics right now. I'm going to take a quick little drink here. All right, great. So next, how to get started, right? So I know we've covered a ton of information here. Y'all have been a great audience. I really appreciate it. And the best way to get started is just by getting started. So I want you to make a commitment to yourself and to your team that you're going to document 5 plays in each of these 4 categories over the next 30 days. We've got a big list, and I'll make sure that you get the PDF copies of this slideshow or this slide presentation as well. But start there. So in 30 days, you should have at least 20 of these plays, and really make it public. Enlist the help of your team. Really try to understand with your sales team, what are some of the issues that are coming up when it comes to training and onboarding? What are some of the blind spots? Talk to different sales managers or sales leadership, right, where some retraining needs to happen. Identify that and make sure it gets into the sales playbook. And remember, for every hour you're spending documenting, crafting, creating your sales playbook, you can save an hour down the road, if not a whole lot more. So that's a great place to get started. Now, if, like I mentioned, you'll get this deck available. And if you want our help, if you want the templates, and you saw a couple screenshots of them before, we've got over 38 of them. We're adding to them every single week. There's a couple of different ways to do so. So if you want access, I'm going to make you a special offer here. So there's 2 ways in which you can get the templates that we have, plus all the other content. The first is with our flagship service, which is called Sales Kit Plus Butler. So it's the software plus consulting services. And because you're on this webinar, because you guys have been so great here, what we're offering for webinar attendees only is 1 month of Sales Kit plus Butler. And that's where we actually build your sales playbook with you. So instead of you spending time building out the plays and things like that, we'll actually do that. Our team will handle that for you, so you can concentrate on just creating a great sales team. Normally, we charge $300 a month for that. You'll get a special rate of $110 a month for the first month. That's also going to include 2 one-hour quick start workshop sessions. That's not easy to say at all, in which will help make sure you get started. We'll get you on board. We'll go through and identify what are some of the holes in your current sales playbook. If you have one, we'll help you build out your sales playbook during that time. You'll get access to all the templates and a whole lot more. And then we'll continually build out your sales playbook. So if at any time you come across a new email that's working, some new product information, a new social media message that's really working well, you send that over to our team. We make sure it gets in your sales playbook. And you'll also get a 60-day money back guarantee. So if at any time during those first 60 days, if it's just not working, not what you wanted, not successful, just let us know and we will give you 100% of your money back, no questions asked. Now, if you just want access to the platform, if you just want to get the templates, that's great too. That's awesome. That's a great way to start. Now, so what you get with that is basically access to all of Sales Kit. That's where all of the templates are that you saw today, plus any ones that we add. We're going to throw in as well a 1-hour quick start workshop session. So normally we don't do this. However, for webinar attendees, we will give them a special quick start workshop session as well. And you'll also have that 60-day money back guarantee. So if you have any interest in any of this, we are coming up to a little bit of capacity. We're helping a lot of companies get set up with their sales playbook now. So this pricing is going to be good for up the following week. And so if you're feeling overwhelmed with onboarding and training your sales team, we're definitely here to help. All you got to do is just send me a quick email and we'll make sure we get set up with you. Now, that's all we have for the presentation today. I will be sending you out the deck and I will be sticking around here for anybody if they have questions at all. But thank you so much for being on this webinar. Really appreciate it. Thanks for your time and attention.
Thanks, Mark. Appreciate your insights.
Thanks, Ross. Appreciate you, man. Thanks for coming on.
Take care.
All right. Well,
You're
if
still
anybody does, hello?
Hi.
Hi, this is Lydia.
Great presentation, Mark. Thank you.
Thank you, Lydia. My pleasure.
I was just, one thing that I've been thinking about is building building templated sales playbooks, sales scripts, inventive for new clients, new customers with sales teams who need help getting up to speed really fast.
Yeah.
Because particularly, the scripts for outbound and inbound calls. And remember, and it's hard for salespeople, even experienced salespeople, to always remember all the questions they need to ask or should be asking, the information they want to get. So since we have a really great survey tool in our platform, that can be accessed, and you can complete a survey as as a user.
Oh,
Yeah. So, if somebody is calling Joe Smith, they would access Joe's CRM profile and click the button to complete a survey as Joe.
oh,
And
wow.
and then all of that data is automatically added to Joe's profile.
Oh, that sounds cool. I
It
like
is,
that.
yeah, it is cool.
I like that a lot. That's got to be really helpful.
Yeah. So, and you're actually the first person that I've connected with who uh, who sees what that, the potential for that.
Yeah.
Because I talk to people that are sales trainers, um, talking about, cold calling, cold emailing, stuff like that. And of course you can include all of those scripts because we have a wiki tool, so you can build your sales playbook in the wiki and share that with all of your salespeople.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I'd love to see that, Lydia. Could we set some time up? Would you mind if I sent you an email, and could we set some time up? I'd love to see that.
Yeah, just email lksugarman@gmail.com.
Okay. I've got.
And the my the website is ventive.com, ventive.com. You're welcome to you know jump ahead and create a trial so you can start playing around with it and exploring. Just opening the drop downs in the top navigation is a good introduction, as well as all the tools. There's also project. There's all kinds of tools in there.
Okay.
Go on and on.
Well, awesome. Well, I can't wait to look at it. Yeah, I just sent you a message. So yeah,
Awesome.
let's definitely get connected. I would love to learn more and see more about that and see if there's any ways to kind of partner there.
This could be the beginning of a great partnership.
That sounds great. I'm all about that.
Yeah. So here's something that should get you really excited is we have the ability to create templated accounts. So in other words, there could be a Get Sales Kit Ventive account that when somebody signs up for a trial, they can get that version of Ventive with all of these pre-formatted tools built in.
Oh, wow.
Already. Yeah.
Huh. Yeah. Okay. Well, I'd be curious about learning more about like what I would. Yeah, I want to see kind of exactly how that works. So let's do this, Lydia. So I sent you a message, an email there. Book a time. Just grab a time slot, and then yeah, I would love to hear that.
Yeah. Yay. Have a
awesome.
great weekend.
Thanks, Lydia. I will. Thank you. You too. And thanks so much for being here. I really appreciate it.
It was a great presentation. Thanks.
Thank you. I really appreciate that.
Bye-bye.
Bye now.